Right, let's get to a man whose forthright views have always got everyone thinking in football. So it's little surprise that his new autobiography is a thought-provoking work that really doesn't hold back. I'm delighted to say we can speak live to the Birmingham City striker, Troy Deeney. Troy, very good afternoon to you. Great to have you with us here on Sky Sports News. So let's talk about the book. It's called Redemption. Why that title, and why is it now that you want people to hear your story, Troy?
No, it's just a story mainly about my childhood, to be honest with you, and obviously goes into a little bit about football, but I think in the current climate it's needed. A lot of it is to do with a story with my dad and my mum and my upbringing, and I think in lockdown that's been really highlighted, that people have had tough times, and I think there was a stat of like 68% of domestic abuse has gone through the roof. So we want to be able to show a story that hopefully can help people, and they can see that that there's help out there, and other people go through the same situations.
That's fantastic. That is one of the I suppose the take homes from your book, and it would be great to get your thoughts on some of those points a little bit later. But I just wanted to touch on one thing. I don't know if you've heard about this, Troy. Obviously, you joined Birmingham City at the end of the summer transfer window, but Birmingham fans so excited by your move to the club that the club shop temporarily ran out of the letter E to put it on the back of shirts. So obviously you've got 3 of those in your surname. What sort of emotions has the move to Birmingham stirred up for you, Troy?
Yeah, it's been one of real joy and real excitement. But obviously I've left Watford, which was it was a home for me for nearly 12 years. So there was sadness attached to that. But since we've been back, it's been really fun, really enjoying it, and I'm happy that we can start to see some signs of progression. The results haven't been great, but we have to get back on there and show what Birmingham City's made of.
And we're living in a very interesting time, aren't we, at the moment, in sport, in football. On the field, you've continued to take a knee. It's clearly now down to personal choice, or maybe teams themselves are deciding what to do. But how come you feel that taking a knee is still such an important gesture?
Because it still creates the conversation. Nothing has moved forward substantially where I feel that we need to stop doing that. I feel there's been small changes, but to continue the equality movement that we're having, not just with racism but with all forms of discrimination, I feel like that this is a gesture that doesn't offend anybody and keeps the conversation going. So personal choices that worked very hard with a number of people to keep this within the game, so why would I stop now when I haven't seen enough to suggest that that change is evident?
Yeah, and talking about keeping the conversation going, in the book there's a very powerful chapter on racism, and you mentioned conversations over Zoom ahead of Project Restart when you spoke passionately about these issues. You were talking to Wes Morgan about this, and then it came to one meeting where you ended up receiving backing from your fellow Premier League captains, including some big hitters, on this very issue. Just reprise that story. Tell us about that, Troy.
Yes, it was just an incident what happened in regards to Project Restart, where we was talking about COVID and all of the protocols, which is obviously high on the agenda. But there was one incident where we was talking about racism and what we was going to do. This is coming obviously at a time where protesting was high and George Floyd had recently passed away, so there was a lot of movement towards that, and I just felt like the conversation was dying and no one wanted to really discuss the elephant in the room. So with the backing of Wes, I went in and spoke about it in a passionate statement, and thankfully Jordan Henderson, Seamus Coleman, Kevin De Bruyne all backed me up, and before you knew it in board, and we just carried on talking about it. And it's something now that's happened 2 years ago that is still relevant. England players are still being abused, not only just here in the Euros, but away when they was playing against Hungary recently as well. So it's something that hasn't changed, and the fines haven't been anywhere near substantial, I don't feel.
I want to come back to that, the interesting way to describe it, elephant in the room, in just a moment. But you also said racism was suppressed for a while, but it was only ever hiding underground. And the quote is that now those racists are brave enough to come out into the daylight again. Why do you feel we've regressed as far as racism is concerned, Troy?
Lack of accountability on social media. I think there's nothing else in this world that you can abuse somebody, remove that account and open another one up and do exactly the same thing with no repercussions. Anton Ferdinand spoke passionately about it, and I'm totally with him, how there's no identification process to have a social media account is frightening to me. But yeah, we're in a situation now where people are frustrated, are angry for a multitude of things that's going on in the world, and it's being vented on players because, you know, we do take a brunt of it for a lot of things. We are in a privileged position, we know that, but also a lot of frustration comes our way, so players end up getting the backlash for some things that they haven't even done.
When you mentioned about the elephant in the room, what that means is quite simply that people don't want to address something, isn't it? People feeling uncomfortable speaking about this and actually dealing with it, addressing it. Is actually that the key to making positive change happen? Making people feel uncomfortable, so they have to do something to stop feeling that way?
No, the reason I say the elephant in the room is because at that time it was blatantly obvious that every other sport was doing something in line with racism, and no one wanted to have that conversation. Yes, it is very difficult to talk about it, but there's so many things that are difficult to talk about, but we do that. We don't have any surveys currently going around for, you know, taking the rainbow armband or the rainbow laces into games. There's no surveys going around for that. I think what's highlighting at the moment is that when you talk about race, it makes people uncomfortable, but it also now is getting people trying to blur the lines instead of just keeping it to what it is. Racism still exists, unfortunately. So there's discrimination, there's homophobia, there's so many things that still exist, and we have to work together to make people and the world a better place.
You know what would make people feel uncomfortable, though, and in a way that would then maybe really make them think about changing their mindsets, their behaviours, Troy, is, as you alluded to before, harsher sanctions. You know, we talk about fines, don't we? We talk about things that really are a drop in the ocean for often for Premier League clubs or even for Premier League players, or you know, whether fans themselves, if they are the ones who are perpetuating racist abuse, they can be more strongly dealt with. What would you like to see then in that regard?
I'd like to see a clearer outline. I think any form of racism should have a clear outline of it. All the bans and fines at the moment are subjective to a panel that we don't really hear about or know who makes that decision. So if you had, I don't know, let's say fans were racist, blatantly racist, should be a minimum, in my opinion, of a 3-year ban from all grounds, not just a home game, and they can still go to away games and do it. From an on-field perspective, I don't know, maybe 6 games and 200 grand fine, something like that. And then also they have to go to educational programs, but that has to be filmed and shown what's actually going on there. It's no point me saying, let's go to an educational program, but nobody knows what or who's delivering that message.
You said you wanted a clearer outline. What you've said just now here live on Sky Sports seems absolutely clear as day. So where does this change need to come? Are we talking the Premier League, FA, UEFA, FIFA, and would you want to be involved in that yourself? Can you see yourself taking a role, Troy, in those sorts of positions of authority? Would you like that?
I'm not that smart, to be totally honest with you.
Come on.
What I am is a simple man that knows simple things. Clearer outlines is there for everyone. All the boards that you've just spoke about need to be pushing that. How can the Premier League suddenly change their legislation when it comes to Super League issues straight away? As soon as the money was affected, there was a new legislation passed, so that should be the same within Premier League, with the FA and UEFA, as we spoke about.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, you're incredibly lucid. I mean, you're doing yourself a disservice here, Troy, because in your book you've also said that part of the problem is we're becoming more polarised in our views. Either you're vegan and woke or you're racist. I mean, how much of a worry is that? And how do we get people into a more tolerant, respectful, circumspect middle ground with all these things that we're discussing?
We have to be very careful because we live in a cancel culture world, don't we? That's the problem now, where you're not even allowed to debate, not allowed to have discussion, where, you know, we can we could have a mutual understanding that we're going to talk about things that are uncomfortable and agree, at the end of it, agree to disagree. Don't have to be an I dislike you and you dislike me. I think you look at that currently with the vaccination and the unvaccinated, there's a big, like, people have stopped talking to each other over that, but you're allowed your right to have an opinion as to why you want it or why you don't want it. And it feels like everything at the minute is feel like we're being pushed to have an opinion that's the same as everybody else's, but freedom of speech and freedom of thought is for everybody.
Can I just ask on that point, how much is the prism of social media responsible for that? Because I don't know, I get the sense that, if anything, that magnifying glass has just intensified the situation and pushed people further and further apart. Would you agree? What's your read on it, Troy?
Yeah, I would agree. I think social media has become a huge part of life. And the dangerous thing with social media is not everything that's on there is true. And now there's a responsibility from everyone, people that use it, and obviously social media platforms themselves, to make sure that the truth is getting out there. I think now it's about being first. I think people are just putting things out there and 3 or 4 people will read it, and it's about making their argument right more than having a discussion, as I said earlier. So, you know, it's a scary place, but, you know, with all the good things that come with social media, there is some bad. So we just have to be careful and be respectful of others.
Well, that's it, isn't it? And very much like the discussions we're having, there's lots of nuance in there, isn't there? It's not black or white. It's not binary. It's not. We don't have to hang out at these extremes. We can. You know, could come together, and that is the picture with social media, as you say, as well. I want to return to one of the first things you mentioned when we started this chat, Troy, and talking about your family life. I mean, you've made no secret in the book of just how difficult your upbringing was. I just wonder, how do you handle and process that now, when you have real responsibility in your life, both as a partner and as a father?
I honestly just think that, you know, when we're younger, we put so much pressure and expectation on our parents to know it all, that, you know, through this process of writing the book, I've actually looked back and gone, oh, my parents wasn't actually that old. They didn't know it all. They was very, you know, prisoners of the circumstances in which we found ourselves. I think now, older, wiser, a lot of therapy sessions later, I'm able to look at things in a different light. And yeah, I don't hold any ill will to anybody in my family. It's about hopefully helping people realise that, you know, there's some things happen in life, and you can talk about it and you can grow from it, and you're not you don't have a ceiling on what you can do as an individual just because of past lives.
And as the title of the book suggests, you can redeem yourself. Just finally, what legacy do you want it to leave, this work, especially to younger people, Troy?
Good question. I've never really thought about it like that. I would like that when people talk about Troy Deeney, it's, do you know what? He's not a bad guy. That's all I would like. I'm not bad at football. Not great, but just generally a nice guy that's tried his best and pushed it to the limit. Well,
I tell you what, I mean, humility is definitely a trait that people will associate with you. And this is incredible. I mean, it's incredible work to write a book full stop, but to also just put down on paper all of the things that you've lived in your life, both bad and good, and to put that out to people, with your book Redemption. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you, Troy. Thank you very much indeed, and hopefully we'll speak again soon.
Thank you.